Hi, everyone. Ooh, okay. Hi, my name is Mina Jelani. I am part of the location intelligence team over at CBRE. And to be able to stand here and talk to you all is a real treat. You know, I'm usually the one behind the screens, making the maps, running the data, putting it through the models. So to be in a room of people that appreciate data just as much as I do is pretty amazing. With that being said, I haven't written, let alone given a speech in nearly a decade, so that definitely requires some research. I looked at all the past presentations. Carto has an amazing archive, thank you. I also reached out to my team a bunch, and one conversation really stuck out to me. They said, Mina, why don't you think of it like you're Alice from Alice in Wonderland? And you know, all the asks and the journey and everything you're going through is all part of the adventure. I was like, that's amazing. I could definitely do that. It's giving main character, love it. But more importantly, I think we can all relate to certain projects to all those themes, right? It starts with one question, it turns into 100, you start going down one path and it doesn't really work, so you have to switch, go into another, and cross your fingers and hope that goes any better, and sometimes it just doesn't, but you end up learning something along the way. Or one that starts really small and grows, and then you have to get it smaller, re-strategize, revise, and then grows again, just because you have to get to an end conclusion and try to fit your way through the hallway of doors. So, sorry. So some background. I started at CB around 8 years ago. This was my first real job. I, of course, interned and volunteered, but I never really knew what a 401k was. And more importantly, I didn't really know what CBRE was. Literally had to Google it as soon as I got the interview. What is CBRE? And more importantly, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm not going with the slides. And more importantly, what is commercial real estate? Well, it turns out commercial real estate is everything under the sun that doesn't include a single family home. And CBRE encompasses all of that. We help our clients buy it, lease it, sell it, manage it, change the light bulbs in it if we have to. So just figuring out where in the world they belong is just part of it. I was so surprised. There's this whole other field that incorporated GIS in a way that I never thought to. I remember interviewing and just wondering, so you make maps all day? How many different maps could you possibly be making, and do they go beyond just dots and demographics? And that's when my then interviewer, now manager, showed me a story map. And he presented it to me like it was a PowerPoint on steroids. And I just graduated, so I'd seen my fair share of really cool PowerPoints. So I was like, how impressive could this be? Well, it was pretty dang impressive. It was captivating and aesthetically pleasing, all while incorporating data to tell a story in an interactive way. And I thought to myself, this is it. This is what I want to be doing. This is what I want to be sharing. Well, it definitely took a while to get there. And boy, was I surprised at how many dot and demographic maps I could make until I did. I mean, I made so many at one point I was dreaming about postal code boundaries and different color schemes and border outlines and just ways to make them more interesting. But gradually, you know, you're able to incorporate more data, more analytics to it. What if we don't just look at population density, but include median household income, median age, all the trendy retailers? Is that? There we go, sorry. I quickly began to understand how important this data was and how integral a part of the decision-making it is. Like, yes, this market's a good choice for you, but here's the data to back up why. Using technology to solve client problems, looking at how diverse solutions could be. This is really what it was all about. It was a real game changer in the industry. A saying I hear a lot is, the solution is a combination of the art and the science. And being able to provide the science of that is really cool. Not only are we able to use the data, but apply it in very specific ways and package it in a way that is understanding to people that are familiar with GIS or not is part of the deal with working in location intelligence at CBRE. Like, yes, this market's a good idea for you. It works, you know, there's more foot traffic, it's busier in the summertime, but only 30% of the demographics fall into your customer base. Should we look at the market, you know, across town? What about this one? Should we keep comparing and contrasting? And those are the projects I really love working on, the ever-evolving ones. We have this project And we can probably relate this one to following the white rabbit. It started really simple with a question of, if I'm going to open a location in the United States, where should I go? Well, simple enough until you start diving into our thousands of variables and all the data that we have access to. It quickly turned from looking at all the markets nationally, metropolitan and micropolitan alike, using all the data that we have and figuring out which variables work well, maybe considering some more than others, weighting them differently, but that's all part of it. And it might not even be a shock to you that some of the top markets are typically New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, but then that leads to more questions. Why is it those markets? What about it makes them in the top 3 consistently? Well, those are more questions to answer. What data are we using? Are we using raw counts over percentages and averages? How do we weigh those variables? What else are we looking at when we're considering all of this? And is there anything to balance that? And you have to be able to answer all these questions to the clients. So through a lot of trial and error, we get there. We answer all the questions, and we're able to evolve that even more. So, okay, we decide on New York. Well, where in New York? That's a whole different analysis. We pivot from focusing on where potential customers are clustered to how potential customers move in the market. And that's exactly what we did here. So this is, essentially following the white rabbit. We're able to use pseudo-anonymized data to find out how people move in New York. And in this very specific case, Soho. We're able to grab all visitors that went to Soho using the MTA and looking at where they went before and after. What were they doing? Did they go shopping? Did they go to the gym? Are they just going to work? We want to know how these people move. More importantly, we also want to know who these people are. And you can break that down in a couple of different ways. So we use customer profiling a lot, broken down into different segments. But on top of that, it tells us what demographics they all have in common, but what psychographics, how do they spend their money? What do they like to do as hobbies? And we also want to break that down for local visitors as well as tourists, because if we're using this in New York, that's our local visitor. But if we want to apply this same model across the country, we need to then focus on our tourists, see where they are in different markets. And then it goes into, okay, well, we have all this data, what else can you show us? That's when I start asking the questions. I'm like, okay, so we have total foot traffic. We can show you exactly where the busiest sidewalks in Soho are. We can, are you interested in seeing how long people spend on the sidewalks? Are you interested in seeing whether afternoons or evenings are more busy? Or where repeat visitors are more likely to go? Or where regional versus domestic versus international tourists are likely to walk down? Whether weekends or weekdays are busier? Which season of the year is busiest? Which cardinal direction people are coming from? I mean, it's really endless when we're working with this type of data set. And our job is to filter that down. Luckily, we had this client who had a very strategic, thought process. They wanted to know, in the case, where repeat visitors were, where summer was the busiest season, afternoons have more foot traffic, local visitors more than tourists, and have overall 50% more foot traffic in Soho. So that, there we go. We have all those sidewalks, we have them highlighted. These are the areas you should focus on. Well, not only that, this is where we have to apply the art and the science, right? So we have to find availability, and we have to layer in a few more things. We have the sidewalks you're interested in, but let's actually go a little bit more micro into them. We can break down the foot traffic to a storefront level. Not only that, but we start layering in who are our co-tenants. And maybe your potential, neighbor to the right is busier than your potential neighbor to the left or across the street. These are all things clients are really interested in when they're deciding on a space. And with this specific project, I remember I pulled the data, so many times, like 5 times, just for this one specific sidewalk segment, because it kept coming back really interesting. I thought the data was skewed or something was wrong, but consistently there was this one sidewalk, seemingly low foot traffic, but one hotspot. And I couldn't figure out what was going on in that hotspot. I pulled it for daytime population, I pulled it just for, tourist visitors. I wanted to know why everyone kept going here. And even more so, I looked at their path. We were getting visitors from the gym. We were getting visitors from the airport. We were getting visitors, from office locations. So then something, it was something I couldn't answer with just the data. Again, art meets science. I had to go to my local brokerage team, and I was like, has anyone walked down this street recently? Please tell me you know what's going on. I went to Google Images. There was nothing there. I looked at the buildings. They were all vacant. Someone helped me answer this question. Well, eventually it gave back to me, and lo and behold, it was a hot dog stand, and it's quintessential New York that, we have all this data, and there's so much we can do with it, but unless you're walking the streets and seeing what's going on, it's really a balance of the two. Another way we use data, and just as popular, more so than ever, there's been a really big spotlight on industrial in our market recently, because we use data and demographics to find demand nationally. We're all about helping our clients maximize coverage and minimize facility, figuring out where they should go and why. So we help our clients figure out where their customer base is, but where there's potential growth for that customer base as well. And in this specific example, we had a client, and they had 2 existing facilities, and they wanted to grow. They wanted to open 3 more in the next 3 years. Now, that's a big ask. They wanted to grow their demand by over 80%. So what we're able to do is plug that into one of our models and give them 3 potential new locations. But then they came back, and they're like, well, what if we actually scratch those 2 ideas and add, just looking at 4 across the country? All right. So now we can run it through our model, have more in play, right? Because we want to include drive times. Drive times and transportation overall is one of the highest costs in logistics. So that's something we want to incorporate. So we're looking at now drive times, how far people are going, what their demand is, and how much accessibility they have to their customers and stores. And they're like, okay, amazing. What if we actually grow this even more? Well, then we're looking at a national study that includes demographics and overall demand with our customer base, but more of a suitability analysis, because we want to use those demographics as well as location. So they wanted to know a specific 150-mile radius. How far and how much demand could they possibly reach, and how many locations would that entail to reach at least 80% of their customer base? And you can see that some of the dots are bigger, some of them have different colors, and that's because they each prioritize something else. And that's something, it's a conversation you have with your clients in order to get everyone happy and on the same page. And then they came back, and they're like, okay, amazing. What if we added even more? Wait, is that how Oh, okay. Well, there's another situation where what if they want to add even more? And so you have to be able to answer these questions and use data to get you there. One of the great things about this is when I started 8 years ago, we didn't have half the amount of data we have now. And we had an intern over the summer in the New York office, and I remember talking to her, and I explained what GIS was because she was just an intern at commercial real estate. She didn't know anything about GIS and was really interested to find out more. So we had a conversation. And then she came back to me, and she was like, well, what do you mean you make maps? And I was like, well, this is what we do. It's not just like paper maps and drive times and dots and demographics. Like, we can do so much more. And she came back and was like, okay, but how do you use the data? Like, what story are you telling to help your clients? And each project is completely custom and very unique in every way. So it was really exciting to see her excited about this field that she never thought of that incorporated data into commercial real estate. And one of the things I'm most excited about is the fact that we are incorporating more, and it's something that really differentiates CBRE in terms of what we're doing with our data and analytics. So I'm interested to see if this is the new baseline for the generation coming in, where we're going to potentially grow and get from here. Thank you.